and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Time over to Alan Davis over the communication.
Our Father in heaven, we come before you this morning as a body of leaders for Eddy County, and we ask thy spirit and hand to be upon us as we consider matters for the citizens of the county and the betterment of the work and effort that's going on here in this part of the world. We're grateful, Father, for the many blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us and those here in our communities. We pray for thy continued influence. We ask for protection on our first responders, for those that are serving our country, for those that put themselves in harm's way for the benefit of others. We pray, Father, that if it be thy will, we might receive additional moisture for the ranchers and the farmers that would benefit their crops and their efforts. We realize, Father, that all of our blessings come at thy hand. Know that we love thee, Father, and we humbly offer this prayer in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning to those that are joining us here in the Commission chambers. I have not received any written public comments. Are there public comments from the audience this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on then. Next item of business is IFB RFP bid awards for IFB 22-03 law enforcement taser.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This IFB was solicited on July 6th and we opened bids on July 20th. The county did receive 2 bids, one from ProForce Marketing and one from Axon Enterprise. The bid entered by ProForce was deemed unresponsive. It did not meet all of the mandatory specifications. With that being said, staff is recommending the award of IFB 2203 be made to Axon. I was informed yesterday that the Sheriff's Office did receive a donation from ConocoPhillips for tasers in the amount of $25,100. So we will be using that donation first, and anything that's left over will come from the American Rescue Plan Act money. With that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Sheriff's Office good with these? Sheriff's Office good with these, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we accept the bid.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Henry,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anicio. Thank you, Commissioners. With that, we'll move into the trailing portion of the agenda and ask for approval of the commission meeting minutes from the July 19, 2022 meeting.
Questions or comments? Having none, entertain a motion that we approve the commission meeting minutes for July 19, 2022.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Henry,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is approval of the purchase card report for June 2022.
Okay. Any questions or comments on P cards? Having none, entertain a motion that we approve the P card report for June 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Henry,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next is request for the Commission to approve the opening of Ordinance 01376, the Eddy County Subdivision Regulation, for revisions and updates. Mr. McCroskey and Mr. Hooper. Are they?
Yeah, someone's coming.
I saw Steve out there.
Brian, I heard him in here.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. McCroskey.
Even if it's late.
Helping some customers, sorry. And I don't even have my paper in front of me. I'm requesting that you fine commissioners let me open ordinance 1376, our subdivision ordinance, for some revisions and some review. I won't say we've run into problems, but my hope is that I can work with City of Carlsbad, City of Artesia, speak with Village of Loving, work with the surveyors. Ultimately, I've already had conversation with Luis Armijo in Chaves County. He'd like to work with us as well, so that even from county to county, possibly between both counties, we can get a document that is a little more cohesive, and that so that we don't have people going from one county to the other saying, well, we don't understand, we don't know the regulations. And Lewis has gotten that in Chaves County. We get it here. I think we get it more from people coming from out of state than we do from other counties. But there's some other, I don't know how to describe them, housekeeping issues in the ordinance that we've seen over the years that I think we need to address and smooth out, straighten out. I don't expect this to be an immediate process. I'm kind of looking at a couple, 3 months to work through this process, get it back to the P&D, and then bring it back to you all after we've taken it to P&D, had some meetings for the public, stuff like that. One thing I hope to bring back to you guys as well in this ultimately is also an adjusted fee schedule. And I know but nobody likes to talk about money, but we charge $75 for a preliminary plat. Most other places are upwards of $300 to $500. When I have to mail stuff out, it's costing me anywhere from about $250 to $300 to send the mailings out, and we're charging $75 for the plats. So I think we need to look at possibly adjusting some of the fee schedule up to match adjacent counties, adjacent or cities, municipalities in the area as well. But that's kind of my request to you all.
Questions or comments?
I'm glad you're doing it, because I know Artesia, we're doing the same thing.
Yes, sir.
With some learnings we've had recently, so I'd really like us to see how we can streamline it and make it a little, help them understand that, especially in Artesia. I don't know how Carlsbad is with y'all's little 3-mile radius. I don't know if y'all have one.
It's 5 mile here and very similar in process.
But if we could help them understand, they could do a lot of these things at the same time, so it's not delaying their builds, and I think that's a good thing to.
I'm hoping we could work through some of that. There, between the municipalities and the counties, there is gonna be some discrepancy in how things are done. Just zoning is gonna throw a big wrench into all of it, and how we move through the processes, or lack thereof.
What kind of things will we be changing, Steve?
Oh, put me on the spot.
It's your request.
I know, but my papers are outside. There's just some procedural changes in there. One of the things I've spoke with Cass about previously that'll streamline one of the processes is to do an administrative approval of the summary subdivisions. We get a lot of summary subdivisions through here, and presently I have to advertise those and hold a public meeting. Since COVID, I've been holding the public meetings on Zoom, but I still have to review the subdivision for completeness, then advertise, then wait. Generally what's been happening is I'll advertise on a Thursday, I'll hold the meeting on the following Thursday on Zoom. So we've already looked at it. We've already determined that the plat's complete and proper when we take it to that meeting. So one of the things that I'd like to try to do is just make that an administrative approval like we do on the exemption plats. And when it comes in, we review it for completeness, make sure it's correct, we sign off on it instead of having to make individuals wait a week or a week and a half, 2 weeks, depending on how schedules fall to get that taken care of. For me, that's one of the biggest things.
Okay. Would we be changing any of the specs as far as utilities and access to roads and stuff? Things like that?
It's things we're gonna look at. There's some suggestions that Warren and I have talked about that we wanna throw out there, to actually put some verbiage in there regarding access widths onto properties. Typically, now we look at, if we know it's a commercial lot that's being divided, we want a 60-foot access. We'll allow a 30-foot access easement on a residential lot, but we'd like to look at maybe getting that in writing in the ordinance. One of the other things that I would like to look at, it would be to set a minimum lot size. Whether it's 3/4 of an acre or 1 acre, but actually have it in writing in the ordinance. There's nothing actually in the ordinance at this point. And at the very minimum, I think we should have it in writing in the ordinance to match regulations from the New Mexico Environment Department regarding septic systems.
When we're looking at commercial, you brought up commercial. When we're looking at commercial, do they have any decibel guidelines that they have to follow as far as not in the ordinance, but as far as an EPA noise?
I don't know. I know NIOSH and different entities like that have, OSHA have different regulations for noise and what is and isn't dangerous, but I don't know what it is.
Do we need to have something in there that talks about following the OSHA guidelines as far as noise or something, especially if you're talking about a subdivision?
We can look at it. That's part of what I'm opening this thing up for, so that we can look at it and determine what changes need to be made. And I think because the last update was in 2013 and we're in 2022 with a lot of different growth and expansion throughout the county, it's definitely something we need to revisit.
Do we have any kind of like ordinance like he's talking about for noise with any other subdivision or anything else?
No, ma'am.
There's a noise ordinance on the books in Eddy County,
No.
but it's not necessarily tied to subdivision.
No, sir. We don't have a noise ordinance.
Could we review that noise ordinance at some point?
If we had one,
Oh, I thought you said we.
I'm almost positive I've seen one.
I'm not aware of one. Are you,
Can you
Cass?
look
I
and
don't
see?
remember.
We can look into it.
I can look, but I don't remember the noise ordinance. The city has, I believe, a noise ordinance. I'm not sure about the city of
Yeah,
Artesia.
we've got to be real careful here because we're really right on the cusp of zoning.
Right.
And so if we start saying, you know, this, and I understand exactly what Commissioner Carlson's saying, you know, but if we start zoning the commercial area for noise, then that doesn't make any sense at all, right? Because it's not a residential area. So then we're saying, well, we have designated residential and designated commercial areas. So I think we've got to tread kind of light in here and try to stay with.
Well, I'm not saying set a noise.
Right.
I'm just saying, say that we have to adhere to
those OSHA.
OSHA requirements.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Then I'm not saying, let's go out there and say it can only be so many decibels. OSHA and the EPA's already set that.
Sure. Just like we're talking about the lot size, so we've got to have an acre if we're going to put a septic tank or whatever.
Right.
And we can currently do quarter lot size, quarter acre lots or whatever.
And my suggestion on that one is to set it at 1 acre, because state regulations are 0.75 for 1, 2, or 3 bedroom, 0.88 for 4 bedroom, 1 acre for a 5 bedroom. And, you know, if we set it even at 3/4, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but, you know, at least we've got it in the books. Right now, the only thing is a little bit of verbiage in the requirements and statements that have to be made by the Environment Department at the back part of the ordinance.
Mr. Beard, did you have?
No, I'm curious to see what comes out of this.
I am too.
We've got a pretty good opportunity to make some needed changes. I do understand, though, we do have to work still within the bounds of what the state has said. You
Yes.
know, I've been to your office a few times saying, what the heck is this 5-year division rule? Because it seems like a really dumb rule to me. But apparently that's state statute.
Yeah.
And so there are certain things that we have to work within there. So I would like to open this thing up and really take a hatchet to
Yeah.
it and make it easy to do business, but still be able to maintain the beauty of Eddy County and not have a bunch of, you know,
Right.
Free for all.
yeah, just a free-for-all deal,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're not zoning. And
Right.
we're not gonna get into that because the ETZ was abolished 6 or 7 years ago, so
Yeah.
we've gotta be really careful in doing this. And I would say the overarching mantra of opening this thing up and changing it needs to be, Eddy County needs to be better to do business. Eddy County needs to be better to do business with. Let's make things easy for everybody. Let's get approvals quickly. I'm okay if we have to charge them more to do that because it's a service. It's just like charging more for water when things cost more. That doesn't really bother me. It's not a tax, but it's a service that's incurred
Right.
and things happen. I'm not as concerned with matching up with Lee County and Chaves County because we wanna do things how we need to do them. I
Right.
don't care if a developer has to learn different rules in each place. That doesn't really bother me at all, but we just want Eddy counties to be the best,
We're gonna,
the best that it can be, so.
we're gonna have, public hearings so that we can get the input from developers and builders and stuff. I think that's gonna be very important.
Yes.
That, we have their input in whatever we develop.
And my intent is, that's why I'm not gonna hurry through this process, is to get a copy of our present ordinance out to the surveyors and the like, the developers, have them give me some input back in it. And
Yeah.
I can take that input, bring it into a cohesive document, then take that before the planning and development. We'll also still have the public meetings and so forth to get any other input from the public on stuff. Then once we move through that process, P&D decides that it's ready to come to you guys, then I'll bring it back to you guys, ask for the public hearing and such to
And that might be
adopt it.
a good chance for any corporations that are planning on putting in a plant or an office or a yard here in the county, to put in their 2 cents as far as things that they might need, that we might be able to help them make it easier to do business
Right.
in Eddy County.
Agreed.
None of this will be retroactive.
No.
It'll be-
No. It'll be from whenever you guys adopt anything new that we come up with forward. Yeah.
Mr. County Manager, do you have anything to add to the discussion here?
I think there are, some of the discussion, there are challenges in the county where we have residents and commercial businesses side by side. Those aren't part of subdivisions, those are existing plats and plots, right? So if there is a need in the subdivision ordinance to help define what some of those parameters should be within a subdivision, then that would be up to the public and their comment. But we have had complaints because of the conflict between people that own property who have a commercial business there next to a resident.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the county at this point. So for the provisions of approving new subdivisions in the county, that might be something that is taken into consideration. But it's a fine line. This is for approval of subdivisions of property. What should that include? if you're having a large parcel that you're going to subdivide, what provisions should go with that process? So, 10 years is a long time frame from when the ordinance was this version of the ordinance was approved, and what's gone on in the last 10 years in Eddy County. Significant changes and differences, growth and opportunity and development, and so keeping pace with that so that where we have the ability to influence that progress, it's the appropriate influence, and not, as you say, detract from opportunity and development that would further grow and support development within the counties. It's the right time to do it.
All right. I make a motion that we accept the request.
Request to open up the 1376?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion second, please call the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Next item of business is request for purchase generators installation at both the staffed fire and rescue stations. Mr. Zuniga.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. We're requesting permission to install generators at both the Loving Station and the Cottonwood Station. These are the stations that will currently be housing the paid staff. When we spoke to ISO, it's actually a requirement that if we're going to have people living in those stations, that we have generators at those stations. The doors operate by generator or by power to get the apparatus in and out, and so that's a requirement that they have, that if we're going to have people living there, we have generators. When that Cottonwood Station was built, it was prepped for generator. We didn't spend the money at the time for a generator, but the underground utilities are run, or the conduit, the wire's not, but that was prepped for that. So we're asking permission at this time to go ahead and put generators in both of those stations.
Any questions or comments on generators? Having none, entertain a motion to approve the purchase and installation of generators for both staff stations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, please call the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is fire and rescue as well. It's a request to purchase three 3,000-gallon tankers. Mr. Zuniga.
So these items weren't budgeted this year. We do have the money. We're not asking for general fund. These were actually planned purchases we were going to hope to do next year. When at the factory last week, we're doing some build specs, and we're finding out that to buy a new truck right now, the newest chassis we can get is a 2024. And then they will start building after that. So for us to get fire trucks, we're looking 2025 to 2026 for us to do a custom build. These tankers, these three that we're requesting to build, the chassis have already been ordered by the manufacturer. They meet a spec that we're actually currently using. So these three, we could get one of them in, if all goes as planned, one of them should be available January, the other two would be available February of 2023. This would help us standardize our fleet. These three would match 5 that we already have in our fleet as far as manufacturer, pump, all of it is set up. These 3 are 3,000s. We do have some 4,000s. We do have one that's smaller because of the station that it'll fit in. Like I said, this would help us standardize. We've brought to you guys before, we're looking for a minimum of a 1-to-1. For every truck we buy, at least one will be going to auction. And there's some listed here. And the chief and I have discussed, there's actually more than this we'll probably be sending to auction. The need for these tankers, on a structure fire or a large fire, we need about 4 tankers for every engine that we take out because of the amount of water. We don't have hydrants in a lot of areas, so we have to truck in our water. So these tankers will help us to do that. All 3 of these would be used in the South County, addressing our needs. We believe this will meet our tanker need for at least the next 5 years before we'd have to replace any other tankers. Currently, North Eddy County has, in the last few years, replaced several tankers, so they're good. All 3 of these would be used in South Eddy County.
One additional item, when you were talking to the manufacturer, if there was a commitment on these tankers, the purchase price is significantly less than.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, the manufacturers, like if I custom order one tomorrow, the chassis manufacturer will not give us a price. So we're trying to figure out how we even budget to buy a truck. Because if I come to you and ask for a PO on a custom build, they're gonna say, we expect this chassis to cost $200,000. But in the contract is going to allow them to change that price if the contractor changes that price. So we're really confused how it's even gonna work in business. These, we will be getting a discount because we're buying three. The dealer is going to waive the HGAC fees, which is the contract fees. They're willing to do that. And actually, these 3 trucks, they're kind of holding for us. They haven't even been open to the public yet. We were at the factory, so we got to see the list ahead of everybody else. So the public doesn't know that these trucks are even available yet.
Until now, right?
Deputy Chief Zuniga, Chief Mack and I discussed the options and possibilities here, anticipating that the commission is like, well, we're adding additional tankers. What's the need and how's the fleet balanced? And we did have that discussion about how much water on a structure fire, how much water on an oil field fire, and kind of the minimum's 10,000 gallons.
Well,
and then it goes up from there depending on the size of what's.
On the 22nd, we had a frac fire that was half the frac crew involved, and we used 100,000 gallons. We had to call in county roads to bring in semi-tankers also. When you figure these trucks truck in 3,000, when you use 100,000, it takes a whole lot of trips to bring in that much water.
Wow.
So I think these specifications are consistent with the recent tankers that we've purchased in recent years, and it will help us make the fleet across the county more efficient in the responses, particularly with the staff stations north and south. So after that discussion, I agreed that I would support the recommendation to get these additional tankers for the price and for what it would do for the fleet that would keep us whole for several years. So I think it's a good opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Cordova, any questions?
No, if you guys are good with it, I'm good with it.
So the ones we're replacing, is there something wrong with them?
We have several that, and I'm trying to remember, some of these have already been pulled out of, like the newest one, the 2004 Freightliner, we've actually had the tank fixed once. It's a steel tank, we've already had it fixed once. The back end of the truck, several of the boxes, you can't even open them, had to been welded closed because of issues with the truck, and it honestly was a poor manufacturer. It's not a manufacturer we really use. I believe that's the only truck we have from that manufacturer. Some of the other ones, the trucks are older. We've gotten where we get oil leaks that we can't fix, and so when they sit in the station for a month, by the time you go to take them out, they're so low on oil we can't use them. And a lot of those we've already started pulling out, and they're at the station. We've started doing a whole lot of moving around trucks, and especially with the consolidation where it used to be each truck had its own district, we've started moving a lot of trucks around to meet the needs and start pulling these trucks out. These 3 are the tankers. What we try to be careful on tankers is not to take too many out of rotation before we put enough back in, because then we don't have enough water. So when I thought on this, it's probably in the paperwork we had before, what the amount of water we're taking out in tankers, we're going to add 2,000 to that in tankers. So the problem is they're just old and disrepair. And a lot of our trucks don't have high mileage, they just sit so much. And that's part of our plan with the new paid crew, is to be able to get those trucks rotated and driven a little bit more so they're not sitting so much like they are right now.
And I guess what I'm saying, because 100,000 gallons seems like a lot of water, you're getting rid of however many gallons that is, what, 8,000 gallons?
Well, but each one of these we replaced with the 3,000. So the 1998 would be gaining 500, the Ford would be gaining 1,200.
Right.
What we're trying to do is, and we've brought to you guys some 4,000 tankers before, so we have those size. Sometimes those are just too big to get through our neighborhoods, so we have a diversified fleet. These 3,000s, they'll be in the area where the 4000s are also, so we can get them there. You get much bigger than that, and they're just too big. And like I said, we luckily, through you guys and through county roads, we have a good relationship. They sent out 3 semis that ran all night with us, so they're willing to do that. So when we need the big trucks, they do it. Like I said, it's just a balancing act of the size of the truck and where it'll fit. But so in these 3, we're gaining 700 in these
Right.
3 trucks.
I guess my question, and you sort of answered it, because apparently oil leaks and everything else, but does it make sense to get rid of them, or does it make sense to put them somewhere in case we have that big fire and need a bunch of water?
They
But
end
it
up
sounds
getting,
like they're gonna be a
it's 2 problems. They get expensive to maintain. The other one, we don't have enough drivers. That frac fire that we used 12,000 or 100,000 gallons, we had 12 firefighters.
problem.
And 4 of those are running tankers. That leaves you 8 firefighters to put the fire out. So I understand exactly what you're saying, and if we had a large number of people, like I said, it gets a balancing act whether it's worth maintaining them for how often we use them.
That makes
But
sense.
100% it's people. We don't have enough people. Even if we had them, we couldn't get them to a scene because we don't have the people.
Gotcha.
So part of the overall process, these tankers aside, is to optimize the fleet so that the fleet's in good repair. We're not trying to maintain a fleet that is too large for the service capabilities. That may sound a little oxymoron, but we have lots of stations in the districts throughout the county strategically placed, but because of the current situation with the available volunteers, we've had to supplement with paid staff. And so where's the closest place that I can get an apparatus that I need to take to this fire? And oftentimes, because of where the individual's coming from, it's the same place. And so some of the outlying stations, those apparatus don't roll as frequently. And so if we can get the portions of the fleet that need to be elsewhere, those taken care of, the actual fleet size may reduce. I expected that it would reduce and be used more frequently and more effectively. And so instead of having something that's it's 20 years old, but it only has 10% of its engine hours on it, that's a real challenge. If you're able to maintain that low engine hour vehicle, fair enough, but several of you have been or are in the construction business, and you know what it takes to maintain some of those large pieces of equipment. And if it's 20 years old, you're probably scavenging the necessary parts from something else in your fleet to keep it
And to
operational.
help on these 3, they're considered tankers, but we are now building what we call pumper tankers. So a lot of these old tankers only would pump 500 gallons a minute. All 3 of these new ones are 1,500 gallons a minute. They do have the capability, so if we can only get 1 fire truck there, they do have the cross lays, they do have foam, so we could fight the full fire with nothing but this truck. So if we can only get 1 truck there, we have a full truck with 3,000 gallons to handle everything. All 3 of these, that has been our requirement that they have. They will carry all of the equipment for a Class A pumper, so they can fight the fire completely by themselves, or they can be used as a water shuttle to diversify the fleet.
You mentioned water supply is a huge problem. So when you install like a new gated house, you put like a fire key, or there's a code there that you guys can get in. The fire department has a key, and it's a master key. Is there a map that shows different water stations and water points throughout the county, kind of a comprehensive map? And then could there possibly be, like, you should be able to pull that up and say, hey, we can get water at this location, this location, this location.
Well,
and then a lot of those stations are locked or have the card system or something on there. But if you had another valve there to the side that had a fire access only key, could that help improve our ISO ratings and access?
Not necessarily ISO rating, because for ISO, we have to have 40 years of records for that water source to be able to use it. So like on our wells, that's how so for ISO, no. And I'll tell you, on the fire I was just discussing from the 22nd, that was identified as a problem. We knew there was a water station right there. We sent our trucks there. We didn't have the correct fittings, and then when county roads came, they had the fittings to get to their truck. Nobody had the stuff to convert it to fire thread. So we've already just figured out exactly what fittings we need to be able to hook to those water stations. So luckily with the volunteers, most of our volunteers work the oil field, so we know where there's tons of water sources, and the owners are allowing us, they're willing to let us use them. It's just a matter of having the right fittings. Fire trucks only have so much room, and everybody likes to use their own fittings in different sizes, so it's a matter of having the right sizes.
All it is a 3-inch cam lock.
Right,
Every
well,
water
and
station.
I'll be 100% honest, and I have no
Yeah.
idea why the truck we had the other night had 2.5 cam lock, and that's why I even asked, we did a debrief on it last night. I don't know where 2.5 came from. I don't know if I've ever been to an oil field location with 2.5.
Nope.
So, we already have identified that, and we're also talking with, like on this frac location, there was a frac pump, there was a frac pond, there was all of that. There was no way to go from their fittings to our fittings. So that we are working with industry right now to make sure that we can have those fittings to be able to access that water.
Yeah, and it's just a few adapters, because we've actually run some of these old fire trucks to use stuff, and you have 2 or 3 adapters, and you can get to just about anything with that. To the fire, but the fire threads are all specific and everything like that. But and if you've got guys on site, that's good. But it may help us all if we had a map showing Alphaville, showing SB, showing Mesquite, showing every water station around.
Well,
because
we
a
do-
lot of times those guys don't. I mean, you may be in a location where you don't know where that's at.
Right,
And
well,
you
and
can
we
save
do
yourself
have
2 or 3
decent
miles.
maps of the water stations. We also, the frac ponds seem to change, so they drain them or fill them depending on fracking. But we do know where most of it, and we can put, our areas know the ones that are in their areas, the ones that are available to us, because what we want to make sure is that we have permission to access that water before we access it. So we've identified ones that the companies are willing to let us have access to their water, and then we've talked to those maps are available. And we're always looking for other companies that are willing to let us access their water. It's normally companies are great and we don't pay for the water, so we want to make sure that they know that we're getting the water before we access their water.
Doesn't that with our new mapping system at Rita, doesn't it show that kind of stuff?
We can put those in it. So it's like our hydrants, they're on a layer. We can put those water supplies in
Build
also.
a GIS layer, but that's not hard.
We could.
We have to be careful with those. Some of those locations have pumps, some of those locations don't have pumps. We don't want to pull a suction from our truck and have a problem. Our trucks aren't set up exactly like an oil field truck. So we're real careful to make sure that we don't cause damage to those properties, so.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was an Alphadale location the other night that we were gonna access, we couldn't. That is where the county roads trucks got their water. We went to a local fire department that has a pump and tanks.
Anyway. Sorry, I skipped over you guys. I'm sorry.
My only question was when we was talking about the manufacturer. There's more than one manufacturer, right?
There are.
Okay, and they're all experiencing the same thing as far as the frames and stuff. Is that built by one single manufacturer?
No, this is, and locally, we normally deal with 2 manufacturers that we deal with. We've researched several different manufacturers, but these are commercial chassis, which means these are Freightliners.
Sure.
So both of these manufacturers we deal with, Freightliner tells them you get this number of chassis this year. When those are gone, we'll see you next year. And so both manufacturers the same thing. So the one that we're doing a custom spec on right now that I can't get the chassis into, it's gonna be a 2024 chassis, that is one brand. This is actually a different brand, but it's the exact same problem. If I custom build these, 2024 is the earliest I can get a chassis.
And that's, I don't know that it's necessarily a chassis problem, but you remember, to close out FEMA, we've been waiting for 2 tractors, trucks, that exact same thing. Yeah, maybe they're coming, maybe they aren't, you know? And Jason can speak more to that, but it is a national problem for that type of piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's
if
not
you've got any sway, anyway.
I was just curious, you know, how many people, how many manufacturers, I understand that the truck side of it is pretty vanilla. You got Freightliner, Kenworth, all those, but I didn't know if the chassis was some special chassis, only built for fire trucks.
They do have a fire truck provisioning, but it's really nothing special. It's
Okay, so
It
it's
isn't,
all frame.
yeah, I was gonna say, it isn't a holdup. I expect you to start having the same problem with Public Works and their purchases and
Yeah.
anybody else that's needing this type of equipment.
Especially when they wanna be
Our
double
only
framed. or
alternative to this is go to what's called a custom cab, which is the front mount that they custom build themselves. The problem is it adds about $180,000 per truck,
something. Yeah,
so.
doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Sounds like a walk through. Anyways, are we good?
We're good?
Okay with all this?
Good.
All right, tell Josh thanks for leaving you here. So we can
He went to meet with Yvette Harrell, and that was
Sorry,
scheduled at
yeah,
9 o'clock,
whatever,
so.
Josh. Just drop a bigger name than.
I'm betting that's where the
Oh,
sheriff's
yeah,
at too,
Yvette
'cause that
Harrell.
meeting.
So you're telling us we're less than.
There is no one more important than the Eddy County Commission.
I was gonna say, so we're less important?
No,
Yeah.
sir, you
That's
are
what
not.
That's what he just said. That's what he just said. Entertain a motion, we approve the purchase of 3,000 gallon tankers. Josh Macker, Jared.
So moved.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks, Jared. I heard that bus coming. All right. The next item is the resolution and agreement consent agenda.
Any items to discuss or pull from resolution agreements? I've got one I'd like to pull item 6, 22-166, just for a short discussion. So, having no other items, entertain a motion that we approve the resolution and agreement consent agenda as presented, pulling item A, 22-166, 67, and 68.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
On this item here, I saw it kind of late last night and was a little concerned with it, so I reached out to the PVACD this morning. And what this is, there's some older wells that have been drilled. They sit on the gun range there in Artesia. And I called Commissioner Henry this morning and I said, hey, what, have you seen this? Are we concerned? So we discussed it a little bit, said, why are we plugging wells? What's happening here, and I just wanted the public to know, one of the wells is already leaking, so we have shallow aquifers and deeper aquifers, and the artesian is actually a pressured aquifer. And so we were, we had kind of discussed this morning a little bit about this and our concerns, saying, hey, we could use this for the city of Artesia for later, if there was a subdivision or if there was a golf course or something to go in, why would we want to plug these wells? But after talking to Aaron at the PVACD this morning and visiting with Al, what's happened is these wells are old and they're about a 13-inch casing. They're 800 or 900 feet deep, which according to Al is a really shallow well. So, however that works. But
Deep is relative. You gotta
Yeah.
quantify what brand you're dealing with.
so one of the wells is already compromised and it's already leaking to the surface. And right now it's not a big deal because there's a lot of pumping going on in Artesia, so there's no pressure on the zone. But in the fall, that well actually seeps up and does start to leak. The other wells are all in the same, pretty much in the same condition, and so there's going to be some significant issues that are coming up in the future, and could possibly be contaminate upper groundwater, or if not maintain, contaminate the more artesian water as well.
Get
So
cross flow between this and
cross flow between zones, which is not very good.
So it could be hazardous.
I was concerned that the PVACD, they're taxed, so they receive taxes from taxpayers in the area and they do projects. I thought, well, what's the benefit to them? There's not a lot of benefit to them. It's gonna take them about $15,000 to plug these wells, but the benefit is in maintaining the safe water for the citizens throughout the county. And, cause I said, well, shoot, we could city of Artesia transfer water back in these wells and we could pump the fire out of them. I mean, why are we gonna plug a $500,000 well? Doesn't make any sense to me. It's 13-inch casing, 900 feet deep. That's a big, expensive well. So they said, no, that's not the issue. We'd have to go in line and spend a bunch of money if we were gonna rework them and things
These are
like that.
1940s, 1950s vintage.
Is this anything, does the original operator have any responsibility for the plugging of these wells and the maintaining?
So that is they're not the original operator, but they are the authority, Pecos Valley Artesian Conservancy District. They are the
And is-
maintainers of that.
And my other question would be, is the NMED have, a fund for these old wells to replug and stuff?
I don't think these fall under the NMED, OCD, and that's part of the reason that PVACD, they have, revenues come in via tax for this purpose. So the plugging of these wells falls within their responsibility, and they are funded to manage and the artesian water sources in the Pecos Valley District, which includes, I think, Eddy and parts of Chavez County. So they're the responsible party. They're the ones that monitor and maintain the overall health of the aquifer, the artesian aquifer in their conservancy district. So
How many problem with wells do we have other than these that we've identified? I mean, that would have been plugged during the same
we didn't know we
time.
had these.
Yeah.
They're the ones that brought them up, so they've been watching them, and they approached us, and so I had conversations like Commissioner McCutcheon did with members of that group to understand more. And then Cass and I talked about it. We looked at the agreements. We found another well,
Right.
and they found it not long after we found it, but the records are pretty vintage, and they did send us where the interstate water
Interstate streams.
has,
Yeah.
And that's where these rights went through.
That's right.
PVACD purchased these rights, pulled them out so they could meet compact down the river. And so that's where the rights to the wells, to the wells went. And I've discussed plugging with them, they go and they gravel up to 4 feet above casing, something like that, so they don't cement off the formation, and there's still a lot of communication in the water, so we're not gonna hurt anybody else down the street, down the way. And the main reason we wanted to pull this item and discuss it is because the old adage is whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting, is true. So we want everybody in Eddy County to know that Eddy County's not plugging wells to just strictly plug wells, but that there could be a significant risk if we don't do some sort of.
if these well bores are not maintained.
If they're not maintained, which our only other option was be to put a liner in it and circulate, drill plugs out, which is gonna cost a pile of money, and that is, it's about $15,000 per well to plug these, and PVACD would typically share costs with government entities, but they said, we're not even gonna discuss it on these, these wells are kind of a risk, so we're gonna go ahead and plug them now. So rather than having Eddy County go in there and spend, $100,000 to $200,000 per well on relining these wells, which you set a liner and then circulate cement and drill your plug out, for the ability to possibly use it in the future, I think it's better just to,
Like
do
the bullet and the minute done.
do like Captain McCrae says from death and just ride off from it. So that's what we're gonna do here. So we'll just ride off from these wells, and if we need a new one, we'll go drill some new ones.
You managed to work in the Lonesome
He
Dove there.
does.
I tell you-
That was smooth.
If you can't quote Lonesome Dove and Seinfeld pretty much on a daily basis,
There's something wrong
it's
with
just a
you.
wasted day. It's just a wasted.
Well, you did a fine
Does he know
job.
that's what he's replacing? This is
Yeah.
your job, you're gonna have to do this.
So if you haven't watched that series, you need to get onto
Yeah.
it.
Get on
Get
it.
on it, bro.
So,
Well, if it's a matter of safety, I don't want people's water being compromised, so whatever is the best option, I support that.
anything we can do to keep E. coli out of our Jesus water source, right?
Exactly.
We got a new mayor. He's on it.
I've heard the mayor was concerned.
Yeah. Okay,
Any more discussion?
No, sorry about that. I just figured I'd get calls on it if we didn't discuss it a little bit, so. Anyways, no more discussion?
No.
I'm good.
Okay, I move we approve it.
Okay. Approve with,
Second.
yeah, agreement 6. Okay. Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Henry,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Cordova,
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. That was a good discussion. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on, the next item of business is elected official and department updates. Mr. Hooper.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just thought I'd give a quick update on Phase 2 of the Southeast Loop. Construction should begin here in the next couple of weeks. I talked to Veronica, and she's gonna get some placards made up that they can hang on their rear view mirror so that the people that need to get in, the residents and industry that need to get in and out of that project area, it'll be easy to see it, and we'll make it some kind of neon color so that the contractors can see that they're allowed to be in and out of there. So hopefully it'll go a lot smoother than it did in Phase 1.
Super. That's a good idea. Okay.
Thanks, Wes. Other departments or elected officials? Mr. Zuniga.
Josh and I just want to let you guys know that the first 7 of our hires started yesterday. There are 2 more that have been offered that will start on the 15th. So starting today, there will be 24-hour coverage at the Loving Station. So 4 of those will be going through an in-house academy for some of the certifications they don't have. We'll be managing between our staff and the people that are certified to keep day coverage. But as soon as we hire more and get certified, we'll start the north coverage. Right now, we still are doing pretty good with volunteer response up there to help cover calls, but 24-hour coverage will start in Loving tonight.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
That's a good deal.
Long time coming.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a while coming, but we
There
got
you
it.
go.
No, this is the right thing. Other department heads or elected officials? Really? Wow. Thank you, sir.
Wow, this is a first.
You could go back and say that the commission approved this new outlook there. So. All right. Legislative updates. No legislators. I don't have an update. I hadn't spoken to any of them in the past 10 days. I know they've been busy. LFC meeting last week, looking at the outlook and stuff. So, all right. Next item of business is the travel request consent agenda.
Look at Jason out there.
Okay. Travel request consent agenda. Any items to discuss or pull? Having none, entertain a motion, we approve the travel request consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, please call for the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
Next item of business, or on the agenda, is emergency business. We don't have any today. Item number 10 is legislators and elected officials' comments, announcements, or updates. Don't see that we have any. County manager comments. It seems awful early to me from what I recalled about going to school, primary and high school. But school starts imminently here, right? Some start,
Monday.
yeah, so,
We had some start yesterday.
yeah, so it's, be mindful. Traffic in the Carlsbad area, the Artesia area has increased again. So with school kids out, buses, and just be aware, be cautious, be mindful. We don't need any incidents, speeding or school zones. I would expect that, first order of business, that school zones will get a lot of attention and some enforcement, so rightly so. We met last Friday to approve the year-end 2022 fiscal year budget money, so that's all off and done. We're well into the 2023 fiscal year. lots of activities going on. We still have vacancies in the county, so those that might be listening, have a look at the county website, jobs posted there. I know that resources, workforce resources are challenging. There's a lot of competition, so we're trying to manage that. I think we have opportunities in most departments, so if you have an interest, have a look and come see us. We'd appreciate it. And I'll leave it there this morning. So next item is the county commissioner comments.
Commissioner Cordova?
Just to echo Al's encouragement on safety, just want to thank all the teachers and the parents. You know, it's a lot to get ready for school. We're looking forward to a good school year, you know, among all of our schools in Carlsbad. I think that our school system is something to really be proud of. Also, I want to thank the Sheriff's Department, you know, for their work on coordinating with the schools to maintain safety, and I really am looking forward to working closely with law enforcement and school districts. I hate to be that way, but you know, that's the world we live in right now. And you know, it makes me feel better knowing that we are working together on that. Want to thank Roberta and the finance department for all the hard work on getting our budget together. Al as well. As Stephen said in the meeting on Friday, we're pretty close on target, you know, with our estimations and budgeting, and you know, that's a lot of hard work that goes into that. The county seems like a great place to work. And so, you know, for anybody that's listening or anybody that has family members looking for jobs, you know, I would encourage them to consider the county. Aside from that, just appreciate all the hard work of all employees among the county, and just look forward to getting school started for all these kiddos. So, thank you.
Henry?
I would just say last week looked to be a really successful week at the fair. Lots of exciting things came out of it. I haven't had a chance to talk to any of the board members, anyone, I don't know if y'all have, but it seemed like great success. I really liked how they swung for the fences
They put a lot of
on
effort in.
some of the big acts they brought in, the rodeo, all that good, exciting stuff. So it's always a fun week. It's good to see the successes of those young men and women that work so hard to get their animals ready and their projects ready and everything else. So glad they worked so hard. Glad we were able to do a little bit more in supporting them, hopefully, and we'll make it better and better every year. So congratulations to them. And then echoing what y'all said, with school coming up, please be careful. Obviously, we have sports coming up, which means lots of kids on the road on a regular basis. So just hope for their safety the whole year as they're traveling and competing, whether it be in sports or band or whatever activity they're in. It's always exciting for those folks to be able to do that. So
Thank you. Commissioner Carlson?
Just talking about school starting, it was kind of an eye-opener for me. I was in Las Cruces the end of last week, and I got to have dinner with my son and my grandsons, and they started, I guess, that was the second week of their school. But the thing that was highlighted for me was that my son received a letter from the school district over in Las Cruces saying that prior years they had provided laptops for the students, but they could no longer do that because the school district couldn't afford it. And it just surprised me, with all the money that we're sending to Santa Fe, why in the heck a school district couldn't afford that. I mean, if we have such a surplus, why can't the school district provide that for the kids? You know, I mean, that should be part of the privileges that we get with the surplus that we provide from Eddy and Lee counties. And so I thought that was good. Something that really surprised me, and it didn't make any sense whatsoever that was happening. And then I just want to reiterate the fact that we have the new full-time people starting in Loving, and I think that that's a big thank you and feather in your cap for for upper echelon firefighters. Thank you.
Commissioner Beard?
Maybe those laptops ought to be gold plated to go with it, is what we send.
Well, I agree. I can't even imagine, you know, I think we could provide for what we send.
We send them enough money.
$141 million a month.
I'm very pleased to see what's going on with the fire departments and new full-time employees coming on. The population of the county is growing, the oil field's back. It's a big county, we need to be able to reach out to the oil field. We know there's gonna be more fires, there's more fracs happening. I mean, I think it's great that we're able to do this, and I congratulate the fire department for pulling all this together, and I happen to know the county manager probably had a big hand in all that, so kudos to everybody involved in it. Thank you.
Kind of along those same lines, just a little reiteration from prior meetings. Kids are back in school. Your kids have about a 1 in 100 million chance of being injured during a school shooting. It's the same chance of being struck by lightning. So those are the statistics.
Twice.
Yeah. We've got, kids are safe, and the sheriff's office obviously doing their best, and I know everybody stepped up. So anyways, kids are safe going to school. Let's hope it stays that way. There was a meeting on Thursday of last week. I was invited and unable to attend, but got a brief on the meeting. It was the new college on the hill was involved, the Forest Service, the Park Service, the Forest Service, the BLM, and another couple of other government agencies, because they're struggling just as much as we are to find help. One of the things that came out of that was the lack of daycare in the immediate area. We had maybe 3 or 4 daycares to start out with. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's no more than 5.
And so, but now there's down to, we started out with 3 or 4 or 5, and now we're down to 3. Is that right?
3, 4.
So, okay, so we've lost a couple of daycares from the beginning of COVID. So that was one of the main issues that was brought up, and there's been some discussion between those agencies on what could be done to remedy that. WIP was there as well, in WP, and so it's one of the real challenges in our community, and I'm not sure what the state requirements for daycare or anything like that. It's real preliminary, but we'll have another couple meetings on that, and I'll bring more reports back to the county and what can be done with that. Also, housing was issue is, you know, kind of the standard deal, but one of the good points that was brought up is that you know, the BLM is understaffed, and they said, well, it's because housing is so expensive in the area. He said unless we looked at the Jackson Hole, Wyoming offices and realized that housing was 4 times as high in Jackson Hole, Wyoming than it was in Carlsbad, Mexico. He said, so it kind of brought everything back to where we're at. So we've got problems, but so does everybody else. So I guess you just grit your teeth and get through them. And along with John, the fair was really good. They jumped out, did a bunch of really good acts, and there was a ton of people there, a lot of participation, and community events like that are really important to go to. I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday, and he had a couple of his kids make the fair, and we were talking about fair, and anyways, the structure and how it started and where it's at today. And we said, well, you know, it's kind of like the old farmer that took his horse to the fair, and he was an old plow horse, and he takes him out there, and he says, well, he entered him up in the race, and they said, John, what are you doing with old sorry plow horse? He has no chance of winning. And he goes, well, he said, I just like to see him get lathered up in good company. And so, you know, you may go to the fair and say, and you say, well, we won or we lose or not, but it was plenty hot enough, so chances are if you went to the fair, you got lathered up and you were in good company all week. So it was a...
That's quite a setup.
Yeah. It was a success up there. So tons of people and a lot of really, really good people, and good people in Eddy County came out. So we appreciate that. So anyways, I guess with that, we have an executive session. So
We do.
we'll entertain a motion that we go into executive session in accordance with State Open Meetings Act 1015-1H7 to discuss threatened or pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Henry.
Yes.
McCutcheon.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Cordova.
Yes.
return.
So you reckon this is a 30-minute conversation?
Probably
Important.
10 o'clock, at least.
Need a break before? No?
We'll
Okay.
return at 10 o'clock.
I had a patient I saw yesterday, she had 21 animals